Welcome to the Undercovers podcast. I'm Ben along with Paul and Connor. We got a pretty exciting show tonight. We have a lot of football to discuss as Hard Knocks is coming to a training camp near you this summer, and we actually had some OTAs today as well for the Bills. OTA started, so let's get into it.
Indeed, we did. And indeed,
Yeah,
we see some good things.
we are 100. I think we're also officially 100 days away from the start of the NFL season. So we're so close. We're so close to
Yep.
being officially back. But OTAs is the part of that is the first part of the off-season activities, and then you get mandatory mini camps, and just somewhere in the middle of June, then you get that random dead period between end of mini camps to the start of training camp, and then basically when training camp happens, we're in full swing. So we're almost there. Let's head into our first quick takes, and the first one would be for you, Ben. Is who in the NFC has the best chance to knock off the Eagles as the best team in the NFC?
You know what you want
Probably
to say.
what I want to say,
Yeah, you know it. Say it.
the Detroit Lions.
Okay, well, yeah.
Last year they were, the one seed in the NFC for a reason, and I firmly believe if they didn't have his bad injury luck, they would have possibly had the defensive player of the year and Aiden Hutchinson,
Mm-hmm.
and they lost literally their entire secondary. They added DJ Reed, who is a player a lot of Bills fans wanted at one point or another in the offseason. They have a bunch of second-year guys in the secondary who I think are going to continue to improve. Outside of Reed, they have one of, if not the best, safety tandems in the National Football League between Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph. So I still don't think the Detroit Lions are really going to be going anywhere in that NFC conversation. You obviously have the
Real.
Rams, who I know is probably who you wanted me to say.
It wasn't a good shot.
No, it wasn't.
It was Tampa Bay, but good try.
Yeah, Tampa Bay's got some work to do.
Oh, for sure. But at least, it would have been a little more outside the box than to just go, oh, Rams, because the Rams were the only ones to give Philly any trouble in the postseason.
Right. Yeah, no, Rams for sure are up there. I got to see what Tampa Bay's defense looks like because last year, they literally, did really like they didn't really even feel the defense. It seemed like,
Nah, not really.
so it's gonna be interesting. They needed a lot of help on defense, and they did add Hassan Reddick, who just
Didn't
like we
even
did New
show up
York. I
the
was gonna
day.
say he did not show up for the first day of OTAs, but his voluntary OTAs. So I don't think you can overreact much to voluntary workouts.
You can't, but people will.
But they will, just like a lot of Bills fans have. But other than that, I mean, they needed help on defense. They decided to draft a wide receiver round one, which was interesting. Even though they did end up adding, I think it was Benjamin Morrison and
Mm-hmm.
Jacob Parrish, I
Yeah.
think, in the second and third round. So that was nice. I still need to see something from that D line, though, outside of Vita Vea, who is like a freak of nature. But other than that,
Mm-hmm.
I have questions on Tampa Bay's defense. But let's get into your quick take, Connor, which
Oh, I think
should be fun.
you guys are gonna like mine. Go ahead and hit me with it, Paul.
Yeah, Connor, you had a few different. You had one particular team that you thought that came up to your mind quickly with this one in our pre-show group chat talk. But what team will go from no playoffs last year to playoffs this season?
Well, actually, there was one that was a joke, but I actually have another one that I had a serious answer for. I feel like it's going to be a little easy to say, and I'm going to honestly hate myself for saying it. But the answer that I actually will give is the New England Patriots. I think that's the biggest team that you can look at and go, this is a really improved team. This is one that can actually go from being well outside of the playoffs and being honestly kind of bad to actually being in the conversation this year and being really good. I don't think they'll be like 10 or 11. Well, I don't think they'll be, 11 or more wins good. I think they'll be 10 wins good at best.
Who was that again?
New England.
New England.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I still need to see what they do when the actual season comes. Because
Oh yeah, no,
I'll
I
be
agree.
honest, I think a lot of their free agency signings are meh, and
Hmm.
their draft was solid. Will Campbell,
Oh
obviously
yeah,
Travion Henderson, and Kyle Williams. But other than the
Kyle
first three
Williams indeed.
rounds, I just gotta see because their draft last year really wasn't all that good. Other than obviously Drake May.
And even then, let's see how he does after a second
Yeah,
year.
yeah, exactly. Especially now that teams have more tape on him.
Hmm.
But the exciting news of the week, which came literally, I think, was it the day after we did our podcast last week about Hard
Yes,
Knocks? Are the
I think that's
Bills?
Yeah,
Wednesday or
The
Thursday.
Bills are on Hard Knocks for the first time ever. Woo woo! I know not everyone is pumped about it as I am. Consider. I think Paul, you had some negative opinions about it, but I mean, come on, bring on the smoke. Like, I think this is a great opportunity for the Bills to show off kind of how they run things to the NFL and potentially if they have a storybook season, what better way to start than a documentary on how they got there? This is the last year in Highmark Stadium
hmm
or what Ralph Wilson Stadium or Rich Stadium, whatever you still call the current stadium. So I think it's a perfect um you know intro to the last chapter at the current stadium, and it could also kickstart a potential epic 30 for 30 someday if the Bills are able to actually break their drought.
that would be amazing. And I'll be honest, I was more on the side that Paul was. I've never really been a fan of Hard Knocks going in because usually it's just a bunch of distractions. But with how the Bills are this season, all the storylines last year in the stadium, this looks like, one of the best chances that the Bills have ever had to win a Super Bowl. You got Josh Allen coming off of an MVP campaign. The team around him arguably did, in fact, get better, which we'll discuss during the OTA bit. And the schedule that they have, I mean, this just seems like the year to put them on Hard Knocks. That way you can kind of get an idea. The whole country can actually get an idea who the Bills are. And maybe
Mhm.
finally we could stop the Khalil Shakir disrespect. I've seen so many people posting their wide receiver rankings lately, and Khalil Shakir just isn't even on any rankings. And I'm just like, what are y'all doing?
Well, it's tough
What's the
because
disrespect?
he's a slot receiver and he's never gotten 1,000 yards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
who else?
excited.
Yeah,
I'm
who else
excited
never gotten
to
1,000 yards?
who?
Juju Smith-Schuster.
No, he's had 1,000 yards.
No, he never had. Even in his best years of Pittsburgh, he never
No,
had a
he
thousand
definitely
yards.
had 1,000 yards in Pittsburgh.
No, he didn't. I can tell you right now. 2018, his best year, he didn't. He had just short of it. Pretty sure it was like 980 something yards. But
No, in 2018, 111 receiving yards, 1,420, or sorry, 111 receptions, 1,426 receiving yards.
oh, okay. I was
He
okay.
has one 1,000 yard receiving yard season and two 900, but
Yeah, you
the
see how
Yinzer
good he
got Yinzered right there.
I did because I completely tend to forget about 2018. That season did not happen in my memory bank. So but no, this is a back to the Bills. This is definitely probably one of the more appropriate times I think Hard Knocks would be suitable for a team because there's no drama surrounding this team. As a matter of fact, the culture is much, much better than most teams that go on Hard Knocks. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing what they'll actually show. I think the people's new favorite player might be Deion Dawkins when it's all said and done because that man is hilarious.
I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean, I'm actually my first initial opinion on Hard Knocks that you saw, Ben. I honestly thought the way it works is that that the teams get to decide if they want to
Oh,
get
nope.
if they want to be on Hard Knocks, not the NFL kind of like the way that I read about it. I thought it seemed I thought the Bills could have said no, but basically there's a few certain exemptions for Hard Knocks. I think it's like if you have a first year head coach, or
Mm-hmm.
if you've been on the show for the last like one of the teams that been on the show over the first like 8 seasons of Hard Knocks, you could
Mm-hmm.
say no. But
Yep.
because the Bills never been on Hard Knocks, it's basically just the way it felt like the way it's kind of worded. It's basically the NFL forces it upon you
Yeah.
to be on Hard Knocks, but it feels like as the reports have came out, it seems like the Bills are open to this now, and under the new rules of Hard Knocks, than what it was kind of before. This feels like it's an opening of kind of giving the fans more of an inside works of how training camp
Mm-hmm.
works. Kind of like it kind of gives this a bigger picture of the fans to go deeper inside of the smaller training camp battles. I mean, you're probably like wide receiver 5 or 6 on the roster. I mean, there's going to be competition battles in the secondary that would be fun to watch and see how it works out in the camaraderie that all the Bills players have together, and the
Mm-hmm.
family culture that they have. And then obviously seeing characters like Keon Coleman and Deion Dawkins,
Yeah, I was just gonna
walking
mention Keon
around
Coleman.
walking around the Rochester area and just being the regular self. So I feel like the way that the show is done now, I feel like it gives the Bills a better sense of how to move forward with this, not just thinking this is a straight up distraction. Because I mean, probably within the first few seasons of Hard Knocks, it was probably a little bit of distraction, and people and teams thought, they were their inside secrets were going to be shared to the
Mm-hmm.
world, to the other teams. But I feel like the NFL and HBO now have definitely done their due diligence and try not to make it a distraction and not make teams worry about their game plans being.
Well,
Well,
they
yeah.
also don't fully operate to how they used to. Like they don't show the scenes of players getting cut anymore as
Mm-hmm.
much as that makes for good television. It's not in
Mhm.
there anymore.
No.
But yeah, it's gonna be fun, seeing especially living in Rochester and like going to all the places in around St. John Fisher, going to St. John Fisher every year. Seeing the local Rochester scenery. It's gonna be fun to see them highlight it on Hard Knocks because I think it's a
Mm-hmm.
special. The Bills training camp is definitely a special thing. I think for the Bills and Bills fans from Rochester, Buffalo, all over. So I
Yeah.
definitely think it's a long time coming. Obviously, they couldn't do it for a while because of the rules around Hard Knocks, but since they changed, we'll finally get to see them highlight the Bills, so to speak, and St. John Fisher. But that's still a couple months away. Now we have OTAs, and a couple of the big storylines today. One of the biggest was James Cook being
Mm-hmm.
absent at OTAs, but I think it would be more of a shock, at least to me, if he actually was there OTAs. Remember, these are still voluntary workouts. We know he's looking for that contract, but he still really hasn't taken to social media or really been a major distraction, in my opinion. He wants his money, which I think he deserves. We'll see how the contract situation works out, but I firmly believe when it's mandatory, he'll be there. And hopefully,
Mhm.
even if he doesn't get that contract this year, it'll just be all business from him as he looks to maybe earn it by proving another year that he's worth the money.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. Because the way I think it's going to happen, he's going to prove that he's worth the money. It's just whether or not it's with Buffalo is the question. Because if you want to know a bit of another funny thing, Ben, I was talking about it with Paul before you got here. If you want to talk about who's freaking out right now after OTAs, it's the Yinzerlands. TJ Watt didn't show up today, and everybody in that whole state in the whole city is just absolutely mortified right now because it's the same situation with James Cook that TJ Watt faces. Last year of his contract, and they're going to pay him. But the question is whether Pittsburgh's going to be the team to pay him or whether somebody else does. Brandon Bean, if you can hear me, kind of clear out all that cap, trade for TJ Watt, fix the defense,
No,
do it.
No.
Do
We
it.
don't need any more injury-prone old
He's
players,
not injury.
especially. Yes, he
Not injury
is. He
report.
gets in. He
Yeah.
gets injured like every year.
No, the
This is
only
a
times
James
he's
Cook
been
conversation. Let's hear Paul's
Yeah,
opinion on
keep it
James
James
Cook.
Cook.
fine.
Yeah,
I'm
I
just telling you.
think
I'm giving you the parallels. Thank you.
James Cook is always is the conversation around James Cook is always a fascinating uh, subject to talk about because a lot of people are kind of saying, if James Cook doesn't want to show up, throw him to the curb and he'll go find somewhere else to be, or other people will say that James Cook, holding out is probably good for him and, probably just good for himself that he's not at, voluntary mini camps and he would just show up at mandatory and training camp and he would still be the same effective guy for the Bills, heading into this season. And I'm kind of like that right now. I think I'm person number 2 saying, saying that James Cook holding out a voluntary minicamp is really not big of a deal. It's
It's
again
not.
voluntary. You don't
Mhm.
have to be there if you don't want to be there. And it comes to a point where it's May 27th. We
Yes, it
still
is.
got 2.5-ish months to try to get a deal done before the start of training camp. And we all kind of know where Brandon Bean uh, likes to do his business. And it's kind of like in that training camp period is, try to get that extension done before training camp or sometime during training camp before the start of the season. And I feel like if the Bills can't get something done, I feel like there will still be time after that to sign, James Cook. Will it
Mhm.
cost a little bit more because we're ready mid-season or after the season
I
is
guess
over?
it depends on how he does this
Right.
season.
Right.
Exactly. This
So
is basically James Cook's prove it year to actually
right.
earn an extension
And
or earn a
real
paycheck with
quick
someone else.
before I get into the next topic, because again, I had to fact check. I had to the ends are the ends are. So here we
Oh
go.
boy.
September 17th, Inguino groin pull strain 1. Same injury in September of 2021. Knee
Mhm.
unspecified strain,
Yeah,
November
we all remember that
2021.
one.
Hip strain, 2021. Groin pull, 2021. Knee unspecified tear. Chest pectoral tear. Head concussion, which I guess is just concussion. Knee
Yeah, it
MCL,
was.
knee MCL sprain. Pedal ankle sprain pull. I mean, if you didn't tell me what player this was, I probably would have thought it was Joey Bosa. And
That's
that's
actually a good
exactly what
segue
the
into the next
Bills I
topic.
know, and that's exactly what the Bills don't need and at the price tag he's going to be asking for. They already
Mhm.
have a Joey Bosa who is now out until training camp according to Coach McDermott. And I was kind of kidding when I said it to you on Twitter earlier. I'm surprised he didn't get hurt sooner, but it
Yeah,
actually
I was
kind
like,
of
that
is.
was fast.
I mean, it actually isn't surprising that he got hurt
No,
already.
it's not.
Like
I'm
it's
more
kind of
amazed.
what Joey Bosa does. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, it's just like a poll.
Mhm.
So as long as he's ready for camp, it doesn't miss a significant amount of camp. I'm not going to be concerned. We have people already freaking out. Let's see what happens. I mean, even if he doesn't play the whole regular season, have him for the Chiefs, Eagles, Bengals, all
Hmm.
those big games,
Mhm.
and ready, healthy for the playoffs. So that means not playing him as many snaps or giving him rest or whatever the coaching staff decides. Do it, but um, yeah, I'm not surprised that Joey Bosa is already hurt.
Oh yeah, I had said that like when the Bills signed Joey Bosa. Don't even give him any meaningful snaps in the regular season until it's like go time. Keep him for the playoffs when you know you need him because history always says that's when the Bills tend to have their worst games because of injuries is in the playoffs. Keep a guy like Joey Bosa around for the playoffs. Don't put him out there on a heavy load. And would you look at that? We're in OTAs and he's already hurt. But
Yeah.
hopefully he'll be all right enough, to actually participate in training camp. But to Ben's last point, you are right. Ever since 21, TJ Watt had been getting hurt quite a bit. He's been in the league since 17. And for a while there, he was fine. But now all of a sudden, it's just what is happening to this man? But it's age. It's just what happened. It's like Joey Bosa now, except Joey Bosa has only played, I think, one full season in his entire career. But I think for what it's worth, he'll be fine. once training camp rolls around. I don't know exactly how much they'll use him. I don't really think the Bills
Yeah.
should use him at all, really. Don't give him that many snaps. Give him enough, though, but don't give him all that many.
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like, yeah, it sucks he's already hurt, but hopefully he'll be okay enough to play to practice in training camp. And then once the season rolls around, you keep him on a very limited snap count. Literally, for any of the other NBA watchers out there, think of load management. That's literally what we're doing with Joey Bosa right now. Load management.
Yeah, I feel like that's the perfect way to place it, for Joey Bosa. You literally just going to have to load manage him for most of the season, and probably same thing as you get into the postseason. You're just
Mhm.
trying to, even though you paid him for 1 year and you give him a decent amount of money, you're still going to have to load manage him to try to get him at least 15, 16 games this season. I mean, the issue here is, and I feel like where the Bills fans are kind of overreacting or feel concerned about is kind of the wording of Sean McDermott and how he kind of said it. He said Joey Bosa is out for the foreseeable future and until about training camp, and then he said he is concerned. I feel like that's kind of where we're at. Is Joey Bosa missed 23 uh 23 he has missed 23 games over the last 3 seasons. Oh, so
Mhm.
over the last 3 seasons that totals up to be 51 games. So he's missed about 45% of games that he could be playing in. And I feel like that is a little concerning here, is that he gets another soft tissue injury, in his calf, leading uh into this voluntary OTA session, and then he's not going to get any workouts or any
Mhm.
training done in mandatory camps. So he's just going to have to show up as Joey Bosa in training camp and kind of ramp up for the start of the season, and just hope he doesn't have any setbacks in between now and the start of the season, because right now the Bills are running on high risk, high reward with Joey Bosa. You're running
Mhm.
the risk of him getting injured, but if he doesn't get injured and you use him properly and he trains right and he doesn't have any setbacks, the reward is going to be really good, because we know Joey Bosa can get you 10 to 12 sacks this year.
I
It's
mean,
just,
yeah, it's
is he
still
going to
Joey
be
Bosa.
available for that?
Still a freak. It's like the man is amazing when he actually can play football.
Hmm.
It's kind of funny because originally I had thought that the Bills were trying to take a page from Chris Greer's playbook when Chris Greer signed Teron Armstead, but the big difference is Joey Bosa actually was signed as a risk versus reward deal. Teron Armstead was signed to be the guy on an offensive line with a very unproven quarterback. So you can see the difference between how much smarter Bean is compared to Greer in the same situation, if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
But one thing I would like to quickly point out before we even get further into this, can we just gush for a minute about how good Trey White looked at training
Oh
camp?
man.
That that
Uh,
it,
hold up. I'm gonna slow
oh,
your roll a little
okay, no,
bit
no, I think I know
because
where you're going with this.
yes,
He
he
looks good.
definitely looks good in a Bills uniform,
Yes,
but
I know
as far
he
as
did.
actual on-field play, he got beat by Curtis
Oh,
Samuel.
I
He
know
got
he
beat
got
by
cooked.
Elijah Moore.
I
Like
saw that he got cooked.
the nostalgia is nostalgic for Bills fans. I guess we got to see it in games, but yeah.
Oh no,
Let's
no, I
move
get
on
that,
to a
but I
bigger
just had to say it.
storyline though. Because I don't really care. I mean, he's veteran depth in my opinion.
Well, yeah.
But
Hmm.
the bigger storyline, in my opinion, is the Bills' potential wide receiver one this season, Keon Coleman. If you
Oh
listen to
yeah.
what Coach McDermott said, he was really impressed with the second-year wide receiver, and according to reports from um, uh, the Shout insiders, he was cooking, and Sal even said it looked like his routes and cuts were a lot smoother than last year. So I think Keon's in line for a huge sophomore season. I'm gonna go ahead and pick him to be the Bills wide receiver one. I think he actually outproduces Shakir this season.
Ooh, Ben, you just know Coach Norvell is sitting there smiling, watching Keon Coleman improve. It's something that he definitely struggled with a lot at Florida State. which was route running and separation. Because he's so big that the reason that that's why he's not that good of a separator is because he's so big, but he wins all the contested catches because he can't separate. Now you got a guy that big who's going to be able to separate. Good God, Keon Coleman might actually. I might agree with you. Keon might actually wind up being wide receiver one in Buffalo for the foreseeable future too. I mean, you put Shakir, more in the slot if Keon's that good, which yes, he will be that good. I've been saying that since day one. You were there, you were saying it right with me. So Keon's going to be him. And I think he is going to be a big problem for every defensive back he goes up against this coming season, no matter who it is, because he'll have to go against Trent McDuffie. He'll have to go against Garrett Wilson, or not Garrett Wilson. He'll have to go against Sauce Gardner twice a year. He'll have to go against Joey Porter Jr. and Darius Slay once. He'll have to go against a lot of talent. And I think Keon's going to absolutely smoke everybody that he faces, especially with how good. I mean, have you seen the pictures of how he looks now? That
Oh
man has
man.
put on some muscle. It is amazing. I love it. I'm just
Yeah.
happy for him. I'm just so happy for him. If he can really be the wide receiver one, because so many people in Bills Mafia were ready to just throw him under the bus after 1 year where he got injured. I mean, he was playing great before he got injured. Then he gets injured, and everybody's like, oh man, Bean really screwed up again. Why did he do this? Why did he let the Chiefs get Xavier Worthy and all that other stuff? So I think this will be the year, provided Keon stays healthy, which I feel like he will, that we finally put that stupid narrative to bed and we realize, oh, both teams picked great receivers.
Mhm.
The Bills just picked one more suited for their playbook
Right.
than, the Chiefs did the exact same thing. Because at the end of the day, that's what they both are, is good for their own playbooks. Xavier Worthy is basically their new Tyreek Hill, and the Bills really didn't need a guy like Tyreek Hill. They needed a guy like Keon Coleman who could come down with the contested catch. And now if the man learns, more efficient separating techniques, it's over. It is basically over. I think bold prediction, because obviously I would be full of them. I think we'll be having Keon Coleman as a top 10 wide receiver in the entire league conversations by the end of the season.
Oh,
Let me
Ooh,
cook, man.
that's bold.
that
It
would
is.
I would
Let me
I would
cook.
definitely sign up for that. I mean, I would sign
I
up
would.
if he was a top 20 receiver, to be honest with you.
That's a low bar. You got to think high with our boy Keon.
I
I want to
feel
think high, but let's see what he does.
Obviously,
His second season.
just call me hopeful. I mean, I am always the eternal optimist.
Yeah, I feel like with more sharper routes and his footwork looked really good. In his drills today, I feel like Keon Coleman, can get back to his old self and back to his old self, but even better. I feel like there's there was a certain there was a certain restriction with them last year. I feel like, whether it was footwork or was separation or was just he wasn't running many good routes last year, just holding him back from, evolving as a wide receiver. And that probably could have led to his a little downfall after he got back from injury, is that he just wasn't really his full self and just wasn't running the correct route, or just was getting
Hmm.
pushed off his route because he just wasn't maybe confident in himself at that particular point in time. So I feel, with a full off season, a time for him to collect himself. He doesn't have to go through the whole pre-draft process and prove why he should be a top, whatever pick. Now he just has to prove that he can be Keon Coleman for the Buffalo
Hmm.
Bills, and the best version of Keon Coleman. And the best version of Keon Coleman is a relaxed, fluid, fun player on the field and off the field. And I feel like we're starting to see that even through one day of OTAs, is where he looks a lot stronger. I mean, a lot stronger. He seems a little quicker. His footwork is really, really good. I feel like we're starting to see the small developments of Keon Coleman to be a really impactful player for the Buffalo Bills this season. But again,
Hmm.
they're not in pads. and then they're not really going 1-on-1 against top competition just yet. So I can't just say fully dive in and say, Keon Coleman week 1 is going to be a monster. But I mean, there's these small growths in Keon Coleman's game where it gets me excited for this season, for year 2 of Keon Coleman. Another player that really stood out today was Elijah Moore. I mean, he
Well,
probably was
duh.
the second best wide receiver out there on the field. I mean, some were saying Keon was the best wide receiver out on the field, and that's the case. Kudos to him. That's really good. But I mean, Elijah Moore, a guy that you both really wanted on the Bills team during the offseason when we were looking for wide receivers. I mean,
I manifested
he
it.
seemed like he stood out really well. And if that's the case, the Bills could have a really impactful room of wide receivers.
See, don't forget that I manifested that the day of the last day of the draft by saying, why don't the Bills get Elijah Moore on a live tweet? And then bang, they do it. So you're all welcome because I manifested it for the Bills.
Another
Man, does he look good.
OTA snippet, I think Landon Jackson and TJ Sanders looked really good today. I think the Shout Insiders earlier today were talking a little bit about it with TJ Sanders and Landon Jackson, even though they weren't playing against the top offensive line. Both Landon Jackson had some really good reps. He looked quick off the line. TJ Sanders had a PBU today. So it looks promising for the two young rookie guys in the defensive line. Again, Jackson, Perino and Tablet said Jackson was so fast with getting off, and his power that Garage was just steamrolled. I mean, that entire sentence gets me excited for the 3rd round pick out of Arkansas.
Yes, it really should because that's amazing. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be those times when you just see it, reported and you're like, oh man, this is going to be great. And then you remember that it's still day 1 of OTAs and you just really got to see what's going to happen when they put the pads on and really go to work during training camp. If he does it again, then, oh, you have every right to be excited. And I think we'll all be right there with you because I loved the Landon Jackson pick when it happened. I was like, if you draft him night 1, yeah, we're going to be a little infuriated with you, Mr. Bede. But he drafted him in round 3, which is a great spot because that was actually way overvalued at that point. Or you
Right.
got him for way less than you would than anybody thought you would. It's like how people were saying about it's the same thing with Will Howard. They were all like, "Oh man, the Steelers got him in the 6th round when he should have been a 3rd round pick." Same thing with Landon Jackson. Everybody was like, "Man, this guy could have gone in the top of the 2nd." Some were even saying 1st round, and you got him in the 3rd. Oh, I mean, Landon Jackson's going to be a stud, and I can't wait to see what he does on the field when they actually put the pads on. I think it's going to be exciting. But actually, while we're also here, what's this I was hearing about the cornerback battle at OTAs? I was seeing that uh, Maxwell Hairston actually was 3rd string behind Tre'Davious White in OTAs. I could have swore I saw that somewhere. I may be wrong, but could you? I'm just wondering what they were doing with Maxwell Hairston if he really was CB2 behind Tre'Davious White or a CB3 behind Tre'Davious White. I mean, obviously,
Based
you got to get.
on what I'm reading, it seems like he was behind Trey White just for this portion because the way it was typed out, it seems like he was working against Caden Prather and Jalen Virgil. So that would tell me, just based off that, he was probably behind and with the lower guys. But I feel like that's probably just McDermott saying, even though we drafted you round 1, you just have to prove yourself just a little bit.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I was
can
thinking too.
you lock up Prathers and Virgil And if you can, okay, let's throw you to CB2. Now, can you stop Curtis Samuel and Keon Coleman? If that's the case, I think you're in a great track to being, the CB2 along with on the other side of Christian Benford. So I feel like that's probably just, welcome to the NFL. It doesn't come easy. You have to work for the spot that you want, and I kind of feel like that's really good by McDermott. Not inserting him right away in the starting, putting him putting him with the ones.
No,
You're
that's
going
as
to
it
be with
should be.
threes.
But I just remember how everybody was panicking about Dorian Strong having a better rookie day than a Maxwell Hairston, and everybody was like, "Oh man, the Bills drafted another Kyer Elam. Oh no!" And I'm
Right.
like, "Will y'all chill out? I mean, you literally just drafted this guy, and you've barely done a thing. Like, maybe your concern over Maxwell Hairston would be more properly noted if during training camp Dorian Strong did look significantly better.
Right.
But right now, there's nothing to say. Like, let them do what they do because you've still got a lot of time before, anything meaningful takes place because OTAs are one thing. Putting the pads on is something entirely different. And that's not even getting into the actual games themselves because good lord, the Bills have a very interesting schedule as we already all know, which I think that's actually a nice jump to our last topic of the night. If someone wants to jump on that one and give their
Yeah.
own first thoughts.
So the last thing we got for tonight is kind of, power ranking the Bills schedule. From the most tough game to the least, to the easiest game. We can, if we want, you don't have to do all 15 games. You could, give your top five, your top five, toughest team on the Bills schedule and the top five easiest team on the schedule. But we could just talk a little bit about, power ranking, some of these games together. I mean, right now for me, my top five toughest games will go Eagles, Chiefs, Ravens, Bengals, Texans. I feel like that's
Who?
the Eagles, Chiefs, Ravens, Bengals, and Texans.
Who?
I feel like
I heard some team with a B. I didn't. I heard all I hear is ass.
So can you wait one more time? So it was who again?
Eagles would be the toughest. Chiefs would be the second toughest. Ravens, Bengals, Texans would be
I would
my
maybe
top five.
switch Bengals and Texans.
I would
As
too.
far
They're
as
gonna be
like,
so bad. I can't wait.
no, they'll be good. They'll be good.
They'll be like 9 and 8 levels of good. We all
No,
know this.
I think they'll
They,
be a playoff
they
team.
have no
I know
defense.
your Pittsburgh bias is
They
seeping
have
in,
no
but
defense. No,
we'll
it's
see.
literally they have no defense.
We'll see. I think they'll still. You got to also remember they're gonna play an easier schedule because they finished
Somehow.
in third place last year. And I mean you got to remember too. They lost that game in Cincinnati to Pittsburgh, which ended up being the difference between them making the playoffs this year. Until we see the Steelers quarterback situation, I don't know if they'll lose to Pittsburgh this year.
We'll see about
It's
that.
interesting. It's a rivalry, but I mean, I agree
Always.
with Paul. As far as the game for the Bills defense is not good until proven otherwise, and that offense can put up points. So, yeah, I'm expecting a shootout regardless. I think Tampa is another sneaky game you could put in
They
there.
were my sticks.
Oh, for sure.
And honestly, a lot of those games are at home, and the Bills do good at homes. What about some of the road games, like Atlanta on a Monday night has a potential to be a sneaky game. Going to Miami is always a tough place to play, even though the Bills have won there more often than not recently. But still, if they've lost anywhere in the division, it's been in Miami. But Atlanta on Monday night could be a tough game, trap game type situation. Yeah, since you did the hardest, I guess I'll go easiest. Am I able to say Dolphins twice, Jets twice, and the Patriots once? Because honestly,
obviously.
it probably would be that way. Maybe I hate to say it, Connor. Pittsburgh up there as well.
No, you'd be right, honestly.
Cleveland.
Yeah, obviously Cleveland.
Carolina, I would put in there, but I think they're
that'll
going to
be
be
a sneaky
better.
game. That's going to be a really sneaky game. So if you guys remember when we were talking about, teams that went, or my quick take, Carolina was another team that I had thought of that could go from out of the playoffs to in the playoffs. I think they are actually going to be much better than people think. So I'm
I mean,
looking forward to see
honestly,
how
that
they
was
do.
Carolina was actually my easiest game on the Bills' schedule. I
What?
feel like that's a game the Bills should take care of. I mean, if they allow Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers, that's an early-ish season game, so I feel like the Bills should be able to take care of the Carolina Panthers early enough in the season. I feel like Carolina could be, if they're going to hang around in the NFC South, they're going to be a dangerous team for anyone that has them in the middle
Hmm.
to the end of their schedule. But my easiest would go from the least easiest to the super easiest would go Falcons, Saints, Jets twice, Browns, Panthers. I feel like those are the easiest games on the Bills schedule.
You got the Browns. You basically have a free win just by showing up. That's the thing too.
I mean, if you go back just a few years ago, the Bills did lose in Cleveland.
Yes,
That was the
believe
0
me,
16
we know.
Cleveland Browns that year. I
We
feel like. I
know.
think it was like
No,
something
no,
like
no, it
that.
wasn't. Ben, Paul, how could it be the 16 or the 0 and 16 Browns
Well,
when
I think they
they
went like
went
1 and
0 and
whatever. I
16?
think.
No,
I
they
don't know.
literally did not win a single game that year. That was the funniest year I've ever watched football. They literally went completely winless. And the year before that, they should have gone winless as well, but Chargers had to ruin that by letting them kick a field goal right at the end of the game. But it's now my turn. And because Ben did, or I think both of you guys did the hardest. One of you did hardest, one of you did easiest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do both because
Okay,
why
go.
not? So I just had to take a look again at the schedule, and I definitely want to say the easiest. Definitely the Jets twice because it's the Jets. Browns because Browns. Browns is the Browns, as Juju Smith Schuster said, and he's absolutely right. You got the Saints, which I absolutely think was going to be a pushover. No team in the NFL should ever be underestimated, but
hmm
just show up to that game against the Saints and the Bills will be fine. So you got
Right.
those two games against the Jets, you got the Browns, you got the Saints, and then on top of that, you got the games in Miami, which particularly, I mean, the game in Buffalo, which I think's week 3 is the first game against Miami, and that one's the one in
Yes, week
Buffalo,
3
if I
Thursday
remember right.
night.
Okay, yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at on the easiest side of things. Now, if you want to talk about hardest side of things, so harder games, obviously the Philadelphia Eagles, that's going to be a very, very tough matchup. That'll probably be a Super Bowl preview, if I'm being completely honest with everybody here. You're playing, I believe, in Buffalo, and I think that game's in Buffalo, right?
The
Eagles,
week
Bills.
preview?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Eagles.
Yeah.
Bills week
Okay, I thought so.
17 in Buffalo.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's what I'm saying. That game probably could be a Super Bowl preview.
hmm
And that's definitely going to be one of the hardest games, if not the hardest game on the schedule for the Bills. I think another hard one is definitely going to be the game against Kansas City. I know that's what you
hmm
said, Paul, but it's Kansas City. Hopefully, the Bills lose that game so virtue goes the other way around this time. Usually, if you beat them in the regular season, you don't beat them in the playoffs. But maybe this time it'll be different. You lose to them in the regular season, but you beat them in the playoffs. So that was the second one. Third one, I'm honestly going to say, just to be a little bit more on the different side, one of those games against New England is going to be a little tougher than you think. I think it'll be the one in New England
hmm
because that is a very much improved team. I think they're going to, and because it's a divisional game and you got more on the line, I think that there's going to be a little bit more fighting the Patriots. And I think that that team's not just going to lie down and die for anybody
hmm
this season. So I think that team's going to be a sneaky hard game. And the last one, I kind of want to go with Tampa Bay as well over Houston. I think I know it might sound biased coming from me saying Tampa Bay over Houston, but I just think Tampa Bay is a more complete team. I personally trust Baker Mayfield more than CJ Stroud, but that's just me. I love Baker.
Mm.
And their wide receiver room is incredible. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. You added Emeka Ibuka in the draft. Cade Otton is a very underrated tight end. And if the defense shows up, I think that's going to be a really, really, really tough game that nobody's going to anticipate will be as tough for the Bills. Fun fact, I don't know if you guys know, but the Bills are favored to win every single one of their games in the regular season,
Yeah, that
which is kind of wild, but I definitely don't think that's going to happen. I'm
it's
honestly
May, so like it probably would
exactly.
change, after week
Oh,
one.
for sure.
If it,
Like, I
on
mean,
the
anything
topic
could
of
change
Texans
after week one.
Bills, Texans or Bucks, entering or exiting the top five, the Bills' toughest opponents. If for some reason the Bills struggle against the going on the road against the AFC South, it's just been kind of their kryptonite in some way. They're going to Houston last year. Josh Allen played one of his worst games of his entire NFL career in Houston last year. And
And
then,
still
you
lost
go a
because
couple years
McDermott went
before
full.
that, the Bills couldn't even score against, a Jacksonville
Oh my
against the
god, that was so
Jacksonville
funny.
defense.
I'm sorry.
So
I'm sorry, y'all, but that was funny. I
so
couldn't stop
where
laughing at that game.
so where that
I was
where that kind
nearby,
of
so
lies for me is the Bills for some reason struggle on the road to the AFC South. They have to play the Texans in their building where
mhm,
where we lost an early season matchup last year, but also added the component. This is going to be a Thursday night game in Houston. So
mhm.
this isn't a 1 p.m. kind of casual type game. This is going to be a not a playoff, a primetime
No, what
atmosphere
is yeah,
in
there you go.
Houston. So I feel like that adds an extra, spice to this Houston and Bills game. Uh, Bills game. I forget what week that is, but it's somewhere
Week
in the
12,
middle of the yeah. So
week 12.
it's right in the middle of the season. So where
Mhm.
both teams are kind of they already know how their season's going to go either which way. So it feels like the Bills Bucks in some way feel like if the Bills start hot, they'll probably win that game. Kind of where it was 2 years ago when these two teams faced
Mhm.
off in Buffalo, where it was close for a little while. Buffalo just
Oh, yeah,
pulled away. I feel like that has that same vibe. They threw
it
it one
will.
o'clock. That game could be interesting. It could turn out to be a tough matchup for the Bills, but right now I feel like Texans just have a little bit more spice and more bite to a tougher matchup for the Bills.
Alright, who called the
I
cops on that
obviously
horrendous take? Did anybody hear
Hmm?
those sirens? I hear sirens in someone's
Oh, it's
microphone.
outside.
Whose is it?
It's outside.
Yeah, somebody called the cops on your horrendous take there, Paul. Like, somebody heard you say Bucks are not as good as the Texans, and they called the cops on you.
But I want to go back to the Eagles game for a second because I
Ew,
kind
why?
just my thoughts on the Eagles game being the toughest game was kind of, back and forth just a little bit because it's where the game is placed on the schedule. It's week 17.
Mhm.
What are the implications of this game? Does the Bills have the division set up? Do the Bills already have a playoff spot slash seed clinched?
By
Like
that
how
late in the season, I
important
would hope that the Bills have a playoff spot clenched. If you
right.
didn't, then you're playing against an AFC that's all a
So
bunch of 13, 14 win teams by this point.
right. So I feel like the importance of this game kind of, crossed my mind placing it, at number one. But but I mean, week week 17, the Bills could be fighting for the one seed. So that could turn out to be the biggest matchup for the Bills this season. If they win the game, they get the one seed. They lose the game, they'll probably be a two seed. So that
Mhm.
that also crossed my mind when ranking the Eagles at the top was even though the games later in the season, the difficulty of this game will range between what are the playoff implications for this game because it might be an easier game if both teams already have seeds locked up and we might
Which
not be
that's going
seeing
to
Josh
most
Allen and
likely be
Jalen
the case.
Hurts, you know,
Oh
throwing.
God, you're going to see Mitch Trubisky and not Kenny Pickett anymore. Who is it? Who's behind him now? Who's behind Hurts? Who's system quarterback number 2 in the system?
I have no idea. Let me see.
Neither do I, but that actually is an interesting possibility that you bring up because that actually could
Kyle
happen.
McCord.
Oh,
Kyle
so
McCord.
that's system quarterback number 2. So he's going to go out there and he's going to put up like he's going to
Mm,
complete like 30 something passes for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns because
un,
that's all the system is.
um, I guess it could also be Tanner McGee too, because
Oh
they
my
have him
god.
too. Yeah, it's gonna be either him or McCord.
All
Because
that's going to
McCord
happen is
was
they're
a
going to put up
recent 6th-round pick.
all that's going to happen is one of the two is going to put up some crazy numbers and people are going to finally realize that it's literally the system, not the quarterback, and maybe they'll stop overrating Jalen Hurts just a little bit, but that's neither here nor there at this point. But I would be remiss if I didn't say it, even though I really don't believe it, but I have to say it for the memes. Everybody wants to talk about how bad Pittsburgh's going to be. You know they're going to win one game in the season, just one that nobody thinks they should win, and I, it probably won't be Buffalo. I think the Bills are way too good, and I honestly think the Steelers can't play up to that level of competition because they always have those games every year where you're like, how did the Steelers win this game? Last year, I'm pretty sure. Hold on, let me make sure before Ben has to try to hit me with the, "Oh, I'm gonna out Yinzer the
The
Yinzer
third
here."
fact check of the night. Get ready,
Yeah, I
Ben.
don't want him to do that again, so I'm gonna make doubly sure about this one. But I know last year the Steelers had a couple of those games where it was like, "How did they win?" And I wanna make sure
Field
that
goals, Chris Boswell.
yes, because now with no more Justin Tucker, thank God, Chris Boswell's now the best kicker in all of football. But, yeah, they beat the Broncos early in the year, but that was not really that much to say. That's literally what got them the 6th seed and why they didn't have to go to Buffalo yet again for a playoff game last year. They beat Washington week 10. I think that's the one that I was thinking about is how did they beat this team? I think the Steelers have that potential next year to have one of those moments where they
Well,
beat another team.
they always are like that under Coach Tomlin. So no matter
Of
who's
course.
at quarterback or whatever, I
Right.
mean, the NFL, it's any given Sunday.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
you
Yep.
saw some games last year. It's like who beat who,
Yep.
and it
Like
really wasn't all that surprising. So
exactly. Like we could do I mean the Steelers could do the Bills a huge favor and beat the Kansas City Chiefs because I'm pretty sure no wait, we don't see them. Yeah, no, we won't see them. We can definitely do you a solid though and beat Miami when they come to Pittsburgh in week 15 because that's cold weather to a time and you know how he gets. Bad. So I think we'll do y'all a favor in the division that week unless whoever our quarterback is decides to not show up. But no, hopefully, I think this year it'll either be, it could be the Lions, but I don't think it's going to be the Bills. I think the Bills just kind of have the Steelers' number lately. If you remember the playoff game last year, or not last year, the year before that, remember that Josh Allen run that had everybody going? That was
mhm.
the most beautiful play I think I've seen from him in a long time.
Oh yeah, in the
But
playoffs. Yep.
yep, that one, and then 2019 when the Steelers were still kind of, before as the collapse began after 11-0, not 2019, 2020,
Hmm.
when the Bills just ran all over them, made them look terrible. Yeah,
Right.
I think as much as I would love to say it's going to be the Steelers making everybody go, "How on earth did they win against the Bills?" It's not going to happen. That
Right.
happened once in 21, though. If you remember that Week 1 game,
Yeah, don't remind us.
I won't because I wasn't rooting for either of you at that point. That was still my crack days. That was the first year of it too. I was huffing it. I was huffing it like crazy. But anyway, no, that was as much as I would love to be like, oh yeah, Pittsburgh's gonna win. No, I don't really think so. I think it'll be more of a joy to the average smart Yinzer, of which there are like two, that will be like, oh, at least they made it close. Unlike the others that actually think that they're going to win like 12, 13 games this season.
So
But
as we wrap up, what does the remaining OTA schedule look like? Do we have another tomorrow and the rest of the week, or is it just like a couple OTAs a week?
I think it's actually not even 100% sure. I feel like it's just this weekend. They kind of go quiet for a few days. I
Right,
mean, there's
right.
probably OTA schedule out somewhere.
Here, let me look.
yeah, wait, while you guys are looking, I actually thought of something a little more interesting. So, what do you guys think about any June 1st cuts, trades, anything like that relating to
Mm,
the Bills? You think that this is going to be that moment where you look at somebody's contract before the month and you go, all right, he's gone? Or do you think
I
that
don't think. I think they would have already designated someone for post June 1st.
So it looks like
potentially,
teams
yes.
can coordinate up to 10 days of OTA. So it's really just going to be up to the Bills how long they want to do OTAs.
Okay, I
for.
see it. I see it now. This
Nice.
is from Chris Brown, which you really can't get any more from the horse's mouth
Right.
itself than directly from Chris Brown. So they'll
Mhm.
also have practices tomorrow and Thursday. Then they'll have 2 from June 2nd to 3rd. So that's next Monday and Tuesday. Then they'll have another one on June 5th. So they got 2 more this week, 3 next week. So I guess that would be what,
That
8,
then
if I'm
leads
not
into the
mistaken.
mandatory part
Mhm.
then.
Yes,
later in June.
then the mandatory minicamp would be June 10th through 12th, and then they're off for about a month. Then they get to go to St. John Fisher, where we'll see Hard Knocks in Buffalo, for the first time. So very exciting stuff.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be great.
And it's nice because next week we'll have what, 2 more practices this week and then 2 practices next week before our show. So we'll have 4 more practices, or workouts, whatever you want to call them, to talk about.
Mhm.
What, did something happen?
No.
What? What
Oh,
happened?
Paul just gave a really interesting face, looking like he saw
I
some news
yawned,
on
that's why.
Twitter. Okay,
Oh, a yawn.
that's a yawn.
all right. That's
That
a
was
yawn.
a very exciting looking yawn. It just looked like the Bills traded for
Man's
someone or
looking at
something.
man's looking
Yeah.
at man's looking at his phone like, oh my god, the Bills did something. Oh wait, no.
Right? And I'm like, wait, did something happen? And he's like, no, I'm tired.
Rodgers went to
Oh,
the Steelers. That's what I was looking at.
did he
Yeah,
actually?
no, he didn't.
I think Paul is either messing with us or he's not. And either way, it's great.
It's
I
both.
guess I guess we'll never know. But
No, we won't.
that
I do not
wraps
want to
up
hear a word
tonight's
about Aaron Rodgers on the
episode.
Steelers.
And yeah, next week we got some Rodgers news to discuss, hopefully.
No,
But
we
yeah,
don't.
that's it
We have
for
news
the
talking about that he
Undercovers
retired.
cast. Like, comment, and subscribe, and go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.